Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Adam and Chris Show. I'm St. Adam.
I'm Chris Malice.
Chris, how do you feel about microtransactions and loot boxes?
Well, I think the same way that almost everyone else that plays video games do. I fucking hate them.
Well, that's bringing down the band hammer. All right, well, Chris, for those that don't know what microtransactions and loot boxes are, how would you describe them? In one word or less.
Money grabs.
That's
Basically,
two words,
it's
okay.
what it is. It's a doorway from a publisher to get from where they're at in a high, nice ivory tower to your wallet and suck all of the money out of your wallet. That's what it is.
Sounds more like a dark tower to me.
Well, it is a dark tower. It's a very dark tower.
All right. When did microtransactions start, would you say?
They've become more prevalent in almost every major AAA game in the last few years. They got their... I can't pinpoint the actual year where they all came out.
Can you pinpoint the game that really popularized them?
Well, it depends on...
I mean, I hear Overwatch was the game that really did that.
They popularized loot boxes, but microtransactions were in mobile games and free-to-play games prior. The thing is, though, a lot of publishers that decide to self-publish and release a game free-to-play, the smaller companies, that was their way of getting people to give them money and bypass having to pay a ton of money for advertising and stuff. What happened is the rich asshole big AAA publishers saw this and was like, oh, people will pay money for content that, you know, is supposed to be in the game already, and then they started chunking off little pieces of content away.
Well, who are some of the biggest offenders when it comes to these gaming companies?
EA, Activision, 2K Games, and now Bethesda, and that's the saddest one.
Really?
Yes, it's absolutely depressing.
You went right for EA first.
Where do we start? You look at their Ultimate Team mode that they implemented in the Madden games and the FIFA games.
What, you mean the live services?
Yeah, if you want to call them that. I almost guarantee the devs probably spend that whole year working on Ultimate Team and not the rest of the game, but I digress. They have a loot box system in there. If you continue to buy loot boxes, you can get more cards or characters or players to make your Ultimate Team.
Well, EA really messed up when they did that with the Star Wars games they released, Battlefront 1.
They saw what Overwatch had done with the cosmetic microtransactions in the cosmetic loot boxes in Overwatch, and they were like, "Hey, well, we can do we can look nice, saying we're not going to have a season pass, but we'll implement this." The big difference between their loot boxes and Overwatch's is purely cosmetic. I'm not saying it's right by any means, but Battlefront 2 had gameplay defining, changing loot boxes. You can buy power-ups and stuff like that. They showed that off. They have EA has what they call the Origin Access program, where they show the game off a few days early for people that pre-order that also pay for that access for EA, and people were complaining. And within like 2 or 3 days, it was a mass media storm. It hit the media and everything, and that became the pivotal point where I think microtransaction and loot box culture had hit the mainstream in a very negative way.
Was there ever a positive way to spin that? Like,
no.
Here, we're going to charge you full price for an incomplete game, but we'll sell you the rest of the game.
Well, it's the game-changing stuff, and this is with Star Wars. I feel like what EA was doing was you have a more casual market that buys these sports games, and they see that these casual game players would buy that and or will accept buying all these loot boxes and stuff. What I think EA was trying to do with Battlefront 2 is they thought they could get away with it with that game, and then I think they were going to find a way to transition almost all their games into live service games. They makes like I think more than 38% of their profits come from FIFA and Madden from the Ultimate Team mode. So it's very little effort, big reward. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing with business, especially in this type of scenario, it's very little effort, big reward for them, but it's complete at the detriment to the people playing the game. If you look at Battlefront 2, if you only spent your $60 on the game, you got a nice blaster. It's down. That became the pivotal peak point of where the negativity really started. Beforehand with Overwatch, when it was cosmetic, you had idiots on YouTube, and yes, I'm going to say that, doing all these loot box openings, and I think help create the culture of, hey, this is something we should all indulge in. And, you know, I love Overwatch. I love the gameplay. I love the game. But when I first got that game, I mean, it had like 5 or 6 maps. Yes, you had all the characters. There's no single-player mode. It was just online, you know.
Which doesn't have a long shelf life to begin with.
Yeah, most games don't have a long shelf life if they're only online. The moment you look at prime example, back to microtransactions, loot boxes, Call of Duty. You get the new Call of Duty within the next 8 months, it's going to start dying out. And then
that was money well spent.
Yeah. Well, so there's an argument that's made about microtransactions. Okay, we go to that point with Battlefront 2. We finally go away from that. And another thing I'll bring up about Battlefront 2 is EA created the most downvoted Reddit post of all time when they did the we want people to have a sense of achievement post. It was like 200,000, 600,000 downvotes.
You know, it's hard to get anyone to agree with anything on the internet, but everyone agreed that was fucking stupid.
Well, it was them trying to corporate talk people into being okay with them trying to money fuck them. People were pointing out, hey, I have to spend, you know, hours and hours playing this game to play as Vader or Skywalker. If you think it's smart to put Vader and Luke Skywalker behind a paywall, you are a fucking idiot. Just hands down. If you're making a Star Wars game,
to the head of EA?
If you're making a Star Wars game, Andrew Wilson, if you're making a Star Wars game and you put Skywalker and Vader behind a paywall, you're a fucking moron.
But Chris, you had to make money.
They are making money. They're making tons of fucking money.
But they're not making all the money.
Well, I guess that's more important than people actually enjoying your game.
Did anyone enjoy the game? Like, fully enjoy it. Not be like, oh, that game's okay.
Well,
Did
no,
someone...
It went down to, it's in the $9 clearance shelf real quick.
Oh, that's still too fucking much.
Yeah. Oh, it's a free-to-play game with microtransactions.
Well, okay, so with this negative condemnation, was there ever, like, they don't like the term loot boxes, I'm guessing. They don't like the term microtransactions. Did they try to rebrand this at all? And before you answer that, keep in mind, someone out there connected to that might be watching this video. So you should tell them exactly.
So here's what happened. After about a year or so of the loot box controversy, eventually Belgium deemed that they're going to regulate it. But a couple other countries, their governments started looking into loot boxes. Well, the Kerry Hopkins, the executive legal advisor for EA, went to the UK to defend loot boxes and gave them a brand new term called surprise mechanics.
Because it's surprise when you get fucked by these companies.
Oh, yeah. But I digress. So there's an argument.
I think everyone that heard that statement was surprised that they'd have the balls to even try that.
So if you look at what's happened since EA launched Battlefront 2, so many of their games that they put this live service model in has fucking failed. You look at Battlefield 5.
Never played any of them.
They're good games. The last Battlefield, they EA'd it and didn't really get a full campaign. There's a bunch of microtransaction paywall there. They finally put in the Battle Royale mode because that's what we all need, more Battle Royale.
Yeah, that'll never get tired.
You look at Anthem. Where do I need to continue on with Anthem?
You could. I mean, there's a lot to be said about how empty that game is.
The thing about EA is they're not the thing about the loot boxes and microtransactions. They're not the only offender. Activision is also one of the big offenders. Just recently, they took the well-received, and this is what they're notorious for doing. So they'll release a game without the microtransactions in it, and they will update it 2 or 3 months after the games come out, so they'll get all those high review scores. Now, they make all kinds of bullshit excuses of why they're waiting, but they did this to Crash Bandicoot Team Racing.
Because that's a game that needed it.
Oh, it absolutely did. At least they thought so. It comes out, and even developers are like, hey, we're not going to put microtransactions in this game. Well, it comes out, and after like 2 or 3 months, everyone's like, oh, this game's great, blah, 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 blah. Then they announce we're going to add microtransactions into it.
Well, didn't something similar happen with Devil May Cry 5? But didn't like the people who developed the game try to fuck the people that wanted microtransactions in it?
Well, I think it was so... Everything in Devil May Cry 5, I haven't played it. From what I understand is there's the in-game currency is so given away so abundantly throughout the whole game, you don't even need to buy the in-game currency. I think that they still shouldn't have put them in there. Either way, it's been proven with loot boxes. You even go to Warner Brothers' Shadow of War, the sequel to Shadow of War.
That game got fucked in the ass hard.
They had loot boxes in there, and they said, well, you don't need to buy them, and eventually it turns out that to get the real...
need to do.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Destiny 2 that did the same thing. It's like, you bought the game, you might have even spent like over $100 buying the special edition of the game, and you still had to buy fucking microtransaction content to get the real ending.
I don't know about Destiny 2. I haven't beaten Destiny 2 yet, but I know with Shadow of War, after they got shit for the microtransactions in their game, or the loot boxes in their game, they eventually took them out and had to rebalance the game. So when they say...
And that game is now in like the bargain bin.
Yeah. And it had a season pass, so it had expansions.
That first game was so good, so it kind of hurts that they did that.
Well, yeah, it hurts the game itself.
Well, I mean, and didn't you just got the latest Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. What they did with that was pretty shit. It's cosmetic, but here's the thing about the cosmetic-only argument. When a developer or publisher says that it's only going to be cosmetic, 9 times out of 10, they end up going back on the word. Mm-hmm. You look at Black Ops 4. The game came out, everyone loved it for the first 2 months, and then they put in their bullshit store. And they had the loot boxes and stuff, and then they started putting weapons in the actual loot boxes. Same with Fallout 76, which that game didn't need any more negativity than it already had. But they started putting stuff in there that you can buy to get an advantage.
Fallout 76.
Yeah.
What were they thinking?
We like money. The majority of people don't like these things. But there's a small group of people that will buy them and be okay with it.
Did you ever have to interact with the people that like to defend them?
I did once on Facebook.
How'd that go?
Well, I mean, when you're getting paid by NetherRealm or whoever to defend that shit, I guess it's going good.
What was the guy's reasoning?
I'm a big bitch. That's all I heard.
Well, there you go.
I'm a big bitch and a cuck. That's all I heard is. We as consumers of this type of content, we need to wise up. You need to not accept that.
No, I mean, really, we're the ones that basically call the shots with this shit because they can make these games. If they don't sell, they're not making these games anymore.
Yeah. Here's the bigger point. These publishers and developers aren't your fucking friends. They're a company. They want to make money, okay?
And not just a reasonable amount of money.
All the money. There are other developers and publishers that push for better consumer practices. Like if you look at all the stuff surrounding Cyberpunk, the new Cyberpunk game by CD Projekt Red, they're not doing pre-order purchases, so no one gets a bonus for pre-ordering. They're not going to have loot boxes or microtransactions in it. That Santa Monica studio, who did the excellent God of War, no microtransactions in it. So it's very possible to do this type of stuff, but they don't get the whales constantly funding it. So it ends up 9 times out of 10 these things end up hurting the games. You look at Shadow of War; they had to rebalance it to make it more fair after they pulled out the microtransactions. The shareholders have been told numerous times by EAA, when they don't sell physical copies or original copies of these games, it doesn't matter or whatnot. They when they weren't selling any of the games, they told their shareholders, hey, I think it was during Battlefront 2 when they pulled out the microtransactions, they told their shareholders, well, we don't really need those in there. It's not really going to hurt anything. The shareholders, that's who they're honest to.
Yeah. And who's usually people that are shareholders? Are they people that actually play video games?
Fuck no.
Because why would they be?
Yeah, most of them don't. Okay. And what's going on now is that I feel somewhat the people in between now are the developers, because they got to constantly walk up to a community that are sick and tired of the bullshit, and they are getting shit. Recently, Apex Legends, it was a free-to-play game. That's why I'm not freaking, foaming at the mouth about it, but still, it's stupid. Implemented a system where in order to get a certain item, you had to spend up to about $200 getting all these other loot boxes. And, people were giving them shit for it because rightfully fucking so. I know it's EA owns them, but
there's most of the problem right there.
Yeah, but they probably don't like putting that stuff in their games. But I can guarantee you, now if you look at the situation with EA, where like 4 of their last 5 big releases have been total turds and total duds and total thuds, they're relying on something like Apex Legends to keep bringing in and incurring revenue.
What, are you saying Anthem failed?
Yes.
That's impossible. How could such a game that obviously offers so much fail?
We can do a whole episode on the failures of
I
Anthem.
honestly don't even know what that game's about.
But what needs to happen is there's a lot of talk about government regulation of loot boxes and microtransactions. I don't 100% disagree with it, but I don't like that idea. My fear is the moment what happens is the government will start labeling video games as a product. Back in the 50s and the 40s, films were labeled product, so the government had, there was a lot of ability for censorship. I don't want censorship.
I honestly agree. You don't want to bring
the government
into the video game system, because we already have a lot of people like the president that are saying, oh, video games are the reason people are doing violent acts. And we know that's not true, but if you make that scapegoat and if you
already
start
have
regulating
legislation,
right, then
I guarantee you the government
then it's just, I don't know, they might be like, well, all of these games are violent.
But what needs to happen is there needs to be a buyer's revolt. People need to hit them in the wallets and reject the crap that they're selling. That is my final thought.
But you know what? And to put to add on to that, that does kind of, it's a double-edged sword, because that happened with Dead Space 3, and now there's no more Dead Space games because they're like, well, it didn't sell.
No, fuck it. If they have to,
but it didn't sell because of the microtransactions.
If they have to hurt their own game in order to sell, then fuck it. It needs to be a big customer revolt against microtransactions and loot boxes. If these games, and I'm not just talking about not buying the microtransactions, don't buy the fucking game. Mm-hmm. If they have those in there, don't buy it. If they start to see that the net sales or the original net sales of the game are like, instead of 2 million units, that they only sold like 40,000, I can guarantee you there's going to come a point where they make the microtransactions more egregious, so they can get their high-paying whales. And there's going to become a point where the whales, who I can assume aren't that big of a fan of gaming, are going to be like, I'm going to quit buying this shit. You have to hit them in the wallets. That is the best way to hurt them.
Well said. So, at the end of every video, we do like to recommend something, kind of cool, kind of neat to check out. Chris, what do you recommend?
I'm going to recommend Doom. Good old-fashioned demon-slaying action.
Good old-fashioned.
Yep, no loot boxes. It's from Bethesda at a better time in their career, before they started sipping from the loot box microtransactions and started making crappy games.
Well, there you have it. And that is a great game. I do enjoy it. Me, I'm going to recommend a movie I just saw last night, Brightburn. When I finally checked it out, it's done very well. It does do the aspects of horror while doing the spin on the Superman origin. How I describe it is Superboy Prime done right. They actually made it intimidating, whereas Superboy Prime makes you just want to quit reading whatever he's in. So there's my recommendation. Brightburn, check it out. You have anything else you want to add, Chris?
No.
All right. Well, from the Adam and Chris Show, I'm St. Adam.
And I'm Chris Malice.
And be sure to follow us on all our social media sites, and we'll check you out later. Bye.